we have a holiday or some interruption, but we plan that we take at least 3 to 4 hours a day to just familiarize ourselves. So the training itself is 3 days. So 5:30, as I said, to 7:30 p.m. and from 9 to 1 p.m. daily. So today we are having the training starting from 6th to 8th February 2023. Then next week we'll also be having another set of training. For you to be able to get the link, you must register through the Smart Academy, and this one will be able to connect with you, not only for this training, but any other activities that are being conducted by the authority. So now I think our trainer, David, is ready. David, are you there?
Hi, Gwen. Yes, I am.
David Omaseti, karibu sana. David is our trainer from Capable. I wish I had all his information. I forgot about it, but maybe going forward, I'll be able to introduce him well. But for now, I take this opportunity to just welcome David and Simon, if you are there, so that you can be able to say something about yourself, David, before you pick on the training. Back to you, David.
Thank you, Gwen. Actually, this is Simon. Once again, thank you for the opportunity that you have accorded all of us to join and be part of this very critical exercise. And I am the host on the Capable side, and I'm going to read through David's profile, which fortunately for us, I have a copy. So just give me a second so that I read through it quickly. I hope, Gwen, you can see my screen.
Yes, I can.
Thank you. So David is a cybersecurity engineer, specializing in network and digital forensics. He has over 4 years of professional experience in the cybersecurity industry, and he has adept expertise in digital systems and computer security hardening through digital forensics, vulnerability management, and system penetration testing. He has experience in training digital forensics in Africa Hackathon Masterclass of 2023 and other governmental departments. David has also done penetration testing and digital system hardening in Internet of Things systems, circles, and banks. And he's currently a cybersecurity analyst at iLab Africa, where he does penetration testing, security operations monitoring, and training of security certifications to professionals. Talk of CEH, CHFI, ICPT, and malware analysis courses. He's also a content creator for digital forensics at Scratch and Script LLP. And he undertook his undergraduate studies in Bachelor of Business Information Technology in Strathmore University. He's now a Master's Fellow in Information Systems Security at Strathmore. He delights in doing research on information security and building the cybersecurity community through membership. I think we are very privileged to have him join us, for him to take us through this session, and all of us are in safe hands. So let's take a second to welcome David, even as he starts the session, for us to learn from him. Karibu sana, David. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you. Hope you guys can hear me too.
Yes, David, I can hear you too.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for that introduction, Gwen and Simon. Yeah, I think it's another time again. I am here with everyone just to go through a bit of introduction to cybersecurity and emerging trends. I think we did this sometime last year. So I don't know if there is anyone in the team who was in the first session that we did. Hopefully we have. If not, that's fine. We shall start from scratch and ideally get to know what is expected of us. So a bit of house rules. I'd like to make this more engaging of sorts. Basically, getting to, sorry, that's the face to the name, David. Yeah. So basically, I'd like us to do a bit of housekeeping. That is, feel free to shoot any questions on the chat if and when you actually have them while I continue. I will look at them and get back to you. If you do not understand any concepts that we'll be diving into in the next few minutes, feel free to request, and let's see how we shall work together on the same. Yeah, I can try rephrase it in another manner. Yeah, on the same. So yeah, with that said, let me just let me just okay, thank you. I'm hoping you guys can see my screen.
Yes, we can see the screen.
Thank you. So just as has been mentioned, David Omasete here, security consultant and research fellow at iLab Africa, situated in Strathmore University. We actually have 3 sessions with us. And ideally, the first one, I broke it down into basically cybersecurity and ICT. So in this case, so that's everything of me. Who am I? Security researcher, trainer for different EC Council certifications, some of the certifications that I hold as at now. And my socials, feel free to drop me an email if you have any questions, and we can go through it together. So ideally, for the 3 days that we're gonna be together, that is from today till Thursday, we're gonna dive through different aspects of cybersecurity. So for today, we'll just go a little bit into the introduction, and I'll try to explain a bit more of what ICT is, and how it relates to security. Yeah. Then tomorrow we shall talk a bit more of what cybersecurity is. Ideally, we have heard of different attacks out there. I know most of us have heard of phishing. Yeah. Ideally, what is phishing? We're going to talk about that tomorrow. 2023 was a very interesting year, especially for those of us who were into the security space. Yeah. And we could see eCitizen at some point went down, and Anonymous Sudan was the story or the talk of the town for a few months. Yeah. We actually have other companies that we actually had had been hacked in the news and everything. So basically, we're going to talk about some of the aspects that happened to them. Talk about what ransomware is, because ransomware is one of the biggest problems that we have across the board. And I think when I joined in, I had when talking about, I don't know if we have security forces here. And that's one of the biggest issues that at least for the departments that I have gotten a chance to work with and I ideally train is a big problem, because ransomwares catch you from anywhere. So we're going to talk a little bit about that tomorrow. Then on Thursday, as we close, we're going to talk a bit more on emerging trends. Yeah. So where are we as a country in terms of emerging trends? What are some of the things that are coming up? I know most of us are actually hearing of ChatGPT that came up and AI. is one of the biggest issues that we have. So apart from that, we have other different aspects. Cybersecurity in and itself is a new concept that is coming in town, and most organizations are ideally taking up cybersecurity. So that also becomes an emerging trend and everything. So yes, with that, I think we can start the day and see how we go from there. So for us, we're going to talk about an introduction to cybersecurity and ICT, then give an overview of the definitions and the importance of why ICT and all, then break a little bit of what cybersecurity and ICT objectives are and how do they ideally work together, then difference between cybersecurity and information security, which is very important to look at. They're kind of similar but different at the same time. So according to you, according to you in your place of work, yeah, in the public sector, where do you lie? Yeah, and what is the most important aspect that you need to have in terms of work? Then I think we shall do a little bit of introduction to the emerging technologies and the implications on various industries, especially in the communication industry. And I'll try give an example of different public sectors that are there. Then finally, getting to understand the integration of technology into business and potential risks is something else that we're gonna talk about. So yeah, basically, the first question we're trying to answer is, what is ICT? Yeah. And most of us ideally use our gadgets. So back in the day, just to do a recap on this, communication has been in different phases as we come. So our parents or our grandparents, for instance, yeah, were actually using smoke signals. They were actually sending messengers, ideally for information, yeah. And for them, information was actually as secure as the person who was being sent. For instance, if you were dealing with a messenger, yeah. Revolution came, and now we have aspects to do with, we have phones. The global, ideally the technological world has grown very small in such a way that you can call someone from the US from here, yeah. So intermediately, actually, before we got to ICT or the technology that we have at the moment, poster was a thing, yeah, where you could write a letter and send it via poster and wait for a week for it to come. Yeah, that also had its own challenges in terms of security and availability and integrity of the information. Because how sure were you that the information that you sent was not received by the intended person, the other side, without having someone to read about it? Yeah. Then the same issues were now transferred into what we have nowadays. We have laptops, we have
David,
phones where we can. Yes.
yeah, I'm seeing, I think, two, three concerns of the microphone. Maybe you can increase the voice a bit.
Sawa.
Yeah, just a bit louder.
How about now? Is it closer? Is it
a bit
better?
more louder?
Move closer to the microphone, please, David.
Sawa. Just give me a sec.
That's what. You want me to get it? Mother.
David,
Yes, Simon.
oh, you can proceed. Ulikuwa umepotea kidogo.
Oh yeah, now you guys can hear me. I'm clear.
You're clear, but just shout a bit. I don't think the mic is the problem. You
Uh-huh.
can just shout a bit, yes.
It is me who is the problem. Sawa. Uh-huh. Yeah, I'm hoping that's better now. Thank you, Jacob. Yeah, where were we? We were talking about a bit of introduction to ICT. And I think I was at the point where I was sharing the sections to where we are at the moment. Yeah. So initially, as I was saying, we came from the smoke and signals. We came to over-reliance on poster. Yeah. And now we transitioned from over-reliance of poster and everything now to ICT. And basically, we have communication technologies that enable us to access, retrieve, store, transmit information. Yeah. For instance, most of us ideally use emails, yeah, at our workplaces to share information from one point to another. That's a form of transmission of information. That's a digital form. Most of us use internet, be it cabled, be it wireless. Some of us actually we're using internet right now, be it wireless, be it cabled. All of us have phones, and to believe that's a thing. Computers, we have softwares. So all these aspects combined together, as long as they are in digital form and they can transmit information from one user to another, then that forms part of ICT. So if you're using a walkie-talkie, for instance, for those in the police force, yeah, to try to relay information from one point to another. So that is part of ICT. And with that, actually brings a lot of issues to do with information. So basically, what is information, I might ask, yeah? So it refers to organized or classified data which has meaningful value to the receiver. So in the digital space, we have a lot of information being passed from one place to the other. Yeah. In the air, like what we in the security field call tapping the air. If you were to intercept all the transmission that is being moved from point A to point B around the air, you'll actually find there is a lot of data. Yeah. So anything and everything that you post, be it meaningful, be it not meaningful, then that's data. From that data that is ideally being transmitted from one point to another, if I am talking to, let's say, Simon, yeah, and Simon can ideally understand what I am passing, be it through phone, be it through email, and it has a meaningful value to him, then the data changes from the just jargon data to information. Yeah. So information is valuable. And in the security or in the cybersecurity space, as we shall be looking at, people look to tap this information. Yeah. So if I were a hacker today and I am trying to look at what are the different aspects that I can get when I hack maybe this recording per se, yeah, any information that would help me ideally build up something, be it steal your data, steal information, steal money from you, or manipulate you in such a way, then that becomes information. Now, for it to actually be meaningful, it has to be timely, accurate, and complete. So these three aspects will actually form what we call the CIA triad. Yeah. Basically, for information to be valuable to anyone, be it a malicious person or just a person who's intended for that information. And that information needs to be timely, accurate, and complete. Because just the same way you need information to actually work on whatever you want to do. Yeah. For instance, for you to ideally get here on time for this session, you had to have been given information earlier. So that becomes important to you. Was it accurate? Yeah. Were you given information that was really helpful to what you wanted? And at the end of the day, is it complete? So these three are what in the cybersecurity space we try to safeguard. Yeah. Because a break in any of what we call integrity, availability, and confidentiality, yeah, will affect these three, any of these three in the transition of that information, yeah. So we have different tools. Ideally, I think this is self-explanatory: telephones, televisions, radios, among the rest, yeah. Communication, this is just the act of sending and receiving data, yeah. So we have different types of communication depending on what information is being shared between one person to the other, yeah. And the three include simplex type of communication that allows information to be sent in one direction, yeah. So simplex communication is like, yeah, a very good example is for us who are in the police service, for instance. If you're in here, you're being given orders that you need to do something at such a time and everything, and you cannot basically give feedback to it. Yeah. So that becomes simplex kind of information. Most attackers, you'll come to find, will not want to basically, or will neglect the simplex types of information or the communication that information that is gotten through simplex communication, because the amount of data that they can use to ideally manipulate whatever they want is very minimal, because it's coming from one person to the other person who just executes. Then we have the half duplex type of communication. That is the information that allows, it actually allows the communication that allows information to be sent in two directions, but not at the same time. Yeah. Whereby you actually get information right now and you reply to it after a week. Yeah. So one of the aspects with which cybersecurity works, or ideally hackers in this case, ideally work, is the timely aspect. Yeah. I want to be into a system or into a communication channel, get there, get the information as soon as possible, and leave without making a lot of noise. Yeah. So at some points, you'll find this type of information might be a bit helpful to an attacker, because they can lie in wait, first get the initial information, then lie in wait and wait for the other one, the other type of information that comes, even if it's delayed. Yeah. Then the third one is basically duplex, which is information in two directions at the same time. So for an attacker, maybe let's say in wherever public sector that you're working with, the attacker will basically want to tap into this type of communication, because in a very short span of time, they actually get information from two sides. So if your boss was actually asking you for something, and in this case you're replying, then that means he has two aspects of that information. And with the two aspects of that information, then they can create something easier with that type of communication. I'm hoping those three are clear. Then we have the third aspect of technology. And basically, this is the core of why we are here. Yeah. So basically, technology is the scientific knowledge and experience and resources to create, be it processes, be it products that basically fulfill our needs. And in this case, we are looking at technology. Yeah. So basically, the build-up in communication is actually because of the advancements of technology each and every other day, depending on what type of communication that you're actually looking at. Yeah. So we have artificial intelligence, which has blown the industry at the moment. Most of us have actually Siri, yeah. Those of us who use iOS, yeah. Siri is actually a technology that we use to communicate, yeah. You can actually tell Siri to do things for you, which is basically a simplex type of communication, yeah. Google Assistant, for those of us who run Android, we have ChatGPT. For those of us who have basically interacted with it in one way or the other. Then we have information technology. This is the telecommunication systems that are being used, especially with communications authorities, and in organizations, we actually have the cable phones. They are called voice over IP, where you can basically communicate from one office to the other. Right now, you can actually even call outside as long as you have the IP and maybe a password to it. Yeah. So that is a form of technology that actually came to boost up the communication space. We have space technology, GPS. Most of us actually use it. If you use Uber, if you use Bolt, Taxify, yeah. The sole technology behind it is basically GPS, for it to know where are you going and map out the best route for you. So all that is communication. All that is information that one can ideally tap to compromise someone in a situation or something. Yeah, we have satellites. Then we have entertainment technology for those of us who are basically into entertainment. We have 3D animations, yeah, that actually come to elaborate more on different aspects. We have movies that actually run, for instance, is the green light background, yeah, that ideally is used to manipulate environments and all. And that is information that can actually also be used. So that's a technology. We have medical technology, which is robotic surgery, for those of us who are in the medical field. Yeah. Operational technology, for those of us who are actually in the manufacturing industry. At the moment, we just click a button and most of the things are ideally being done. Yeah. So that is improvement on technology. On communication, we have virtual assistants. We have Bluetooth. We have Wi-Fi. Yeah. Siri is there. We can add Google Assistant to it. That actually helps us with all of this. The next thing is why ICT? Yeah. What are the objectives? Yeah. Basically, monitoring and controlling access to confidential information is basically one aspect of why we want to monitor the technology, the information, and the communication that we are looking at. Yeah. Then we need safe transmission of data. Let's say in your organization, you need to actually transfer information that is critical to a project that you're working on. Yeah. Then you need to actually ensure that this information being transferred from point A to point B is basically safe. The channels are ideally safe. No one can basically try to intercept the information. Yeah. Then we can secure storage and disposal of data. This is a very interesting conversation that we have at the moment. If you're into the technological field or you read a bit about it, you actually heard of the ODPC last year that came up, and they were penalizing institutions for using people's photos and everything without basically their consent, and it brought up the aspect of what is consent, yeah, and all of that. So that also ties with information communication and technology. Basically, if you are in the public sector and you're picking public information, yeah, how do you store that data to ensure that it's not leaked to the general public information that they should not ideally be getting? How do you dispose of my data? If I was working with you, maybe let's say as a tenderer, for instance, yeah, and my contract with you has expired, and I'm like, I do not want you guys to have my data. How do you dispose of that information? Yeah, that's something else that ICT observations kind of bring to the table. The supervision of electronic communication. is another one. One thing CA does very best is ideally that, just to try and see what is happening in the air. Yeah. Then enhancing innovation and capacity in IT. Basically, ICT is a platform for innovation. Yeah. Things actually coming up every now and then. Yeah. And this is through innovation and capacity building in IT. And ICT ideally plays a very big role in that. Yeah. Where do we use ICT? Education, banking, industry, e-commerce. Basically, it's a day-to-day aspect that we use in different places, be it in organizations, be it at our homes, be it while in transit and all. Yeah. So ICT basically works in two different environments. Yeah. We have the computerized and the non-computerized systems that actually form part of what we're talking about today as the introductory to this space. Yeah. So computerized systems are more interesting and interactive, with more interactive experiences, basically, if you're talking of education. Yeah. Right now, if you wanted to learn something, yeah, the easiest way for you to learn it will be to go to YouTube. Yeah. There are various ways of people thinking about different aspects, yeah, that boosts our daily use of computerized systems in ICT. We have all transactions are done by computers. Yeah. In this case, be it communication, be it transactions, ideally in terms of money, be it exchange of goods, ideally. Yeah. Then computers and telecommunications industry become very popular and profitable since production increased through an all-day operation. So for those of us who are actually in the operation sector of our works, so we can actually know that the production ideally boosted or was boosted because of the computerized systems. And that is because you can actually run something 24 hours a day, yeah, without the systems bringing you issues that was not there. Then we have the e-commerce, which includes distribution, buying, selling, servicing of products that are done electronically. These are done through computerized systems. And like 90% or more of most of the things that are being sold at the moment, you'll actually find them on computerized systems through aspects such as GG. We have people now selling on WhatsApp and others like Snapchat or something. Yeah. Then we have the non-computerized systems that actually depends on teachers and books. Yeah. Which is also part of ICT. At some point, you actually have to work with non-computerized systems. So I know of organizations that have critical information that they do not solely rely on computerized systems. So they actually have a balance of the two to actually improve their security when it comes to ICT. Banking can be done manually if you're talking of transactions. Production was slow because everything was done by human labor. Trading was made using currency system and was slow and tedious. So those are some of the things that actually happen. So yes, up to there, we actually have a basics of ICT and ideally what it is. So the next thing we want to look at is cybersecurity. Basically, talking about what cybersecurity is and trying to understand aspects to do with how does it relate to what we've just discussed a few minutes ago. Yeah. So basically, cybersecurity is the practice of defending digital systems. Yeah. These digital systems can be mobile devices, can be computers, can be servers, can be electronic systems, networks that connect everything, and even the information that is being passed from point A to point B, yeah, ideally from malicious attackers. So it ensures that we have what I was telling you people about, the CIA triad, which is the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of the devices, yeah, and the network, and basically the information that is being passed through these devices from point A to point B, yeah. So ideally, what is confidentiality? Confidentiality is the aspect of ensuring that information being sent from one person to the other is not read by anyone else. Yeah. So if or if you are sending a critical report to, let's say, your boss that has information that would implicate someone else in the organization, then you need this information to actually get to the boss without anyone else actually tapping into it and reading information to it from it. So that is the confidentiality aspect of things. Then we have integrity. Integrity is the aspect of having that information not altered. Yeah. So if you're sending that information from your computer to your boss, for instance, you actually want this information to get to them the way you created it or you sent it. Yeah. So that no one can alter that information from or while in transit from you to your boss. Yeah. So that's the integrity aspect of things. Then availability ideally means any person who is authorized to see that information can see it when they need it, if and when they need it. Yeah. So a very good of lack of availability in our case is the case where we were hacked in 2023, I think last year, and eCitizen was down. So ideally, most of the government services could not be accessed via the eCitizen portal. Yeah. And maybe there was someone who needed that information at that point in time for him or her to ideally create something out of it. Yeah. And that is what we call lack of availability. So basically, cybersecurity tries to ensure that all these three aspects in the information are ideally done. So if in cybersecurity you have availability, then the information will be timely. Yeah. So if you have integrity, then your information will ideally be complete. Yeah. And if you have confidentiality, then that information means it's going to be accurate, which are the three aspects that we were looking at for you to actually have information being transmitted from point A to point B. Make sense? The third, cybersecurity is achieved through procedures, products, and people, which we call the 3Ps. Yeah. So in this case, we're actually saying for cybersecurity to ideally occur, then we need to have digital systems. And digital systems have different aspects, which we call maybe the software or the hardware, you name it. So that becomes the product aspect of things. Yeah. So cybersecurity looks at the product aspect of things. So if we are getting hardware from a vendor, let's say Cisco, yeah, then we need to do due diligence and see what is the security aspect that Cisco provides once they provide the servers, for instance, for us. Yeah. If you're actually getting a software, let's say an application from someone that will aid in what we're doing, what are the security aspects that can be put in place on that product in our case? And these products are actually created by people and are going to be run by people. Yeah. So people is a very critical aspect in terms of cybersecurity. So there is one aspect that we say in cybersecurity that an organization's cybersecurity strength is as weak as its weakest link. Yeah. And the weakest link in any cybersecurity chain is always the people. Yeah. So today we might be going through what is cybersecurity and what are some of the aspects that we need to be keen about. And we shall be keen about it, and you know everything that you need to be done. But maybe because of ignorance or that day you just forgot. Yeah. You actually clicked on a phishing link, and the company or the organization in which you're working with is ideally hacked. Yeah. So you become the weakest link. So the organization might have invested in all the good security aspects. Yeah. But people become the weakest link. That is why a constant training and reminder of the different things that we are doing until it becomes second nature, ideally in cybersecurity, is very important. And these people are just going to work through what we call procedures. Yeah. So procedures include maybe segregation of duty. That means I cannot requisition for something and authorize for its payment also. Yeah. So that is a procedure that has been put in place to ensure that people cannot manipulate the products. Yeah. So for us to have cybersecurity in any organization, all these three aspects need to be looked at critically for us to say we are good in cybersecurity. What are some of the key terms? We have assets. Yeah. And basically, asset is anything that needs to be protected. Yeah. So if in your organization you have information, which all of us ideally have, because we transmit information from point A to point B, then that becomes an asset that needs to be safeguarded through, for instance, cybersecurity. Yeah. So be it banking information, be it medical records, be it, for instance, for those of us in the police service, be it witness records. If maybe, let's say, they're going to witness in a court of law. Yeah. So witness protection becomes a critical part of whatever we are doing, and we need to safeguard it. Computer systems, yeah, basically the products that we ideally have. Yeah. Are they defense systems? Are they critical infrastructure? Yeah. That might bring down a whole country. So this is actually important. It's an asset, and it's important because we have seen in history. Yeah. So we actually have, you guys can go look it out. It's a very interesting article on the Stuxnet attack, where I think it's Iraq that actually, no, Russia. It was Russia that actually invaded Iran's systems. Yeah. And they shut off all the turbines, and they did not have electricity for, I think, a week or something. Yeah. So that is cyber espionage. Yeah. And through computer systems. Then we have services, e.g. websites, life safety systems, if you're in that space also. A very good example of services that form an asset that needs to be looked at is the e-citizen that we have in Kenya. Yeah. Then we have a threat. Basically, a threat is a potential for violation. Yeah. Of a security which exists when there is a circumstance. Yeah. So basically, if we have a potential for violation of the security, that is maybe, let's say, in the organization, we do not have good procedures. Yeah. And in this case, someone can ideally use the lack of procedures that we have to compromise a system or whatever they are working with to cause a breach in the security. Then that becomes a threat. Yeah. So in layman terms, I can say it's basically possible danger. Yeah. That might exploit a vulnerability. A vulnerability is basically a weakness. Yeah. So what is the weakness in your organization? Yeah. Is it that you do not have policies that will curb people from doing malicious activities? Is it that you have systems that are not tested for security, good security posture? Is it that you do not have trainings in your organization to actually ensure that people in the organization are constantly up to date with whatever threats that are there that can be exploited ideally. Then we have an exploit, and an exploit is basically trying to penetrate the system, yeah, or the weakness or the vulnerability, yeah. So if you have a vulnerability and a threat actually gets to use that vulnerability to access maybe confidential information or steal money or change something in the system, then that becomes an exploit. Then we have the risk. So risk is basically the potential for a threat to ideally occur. Yeah. So if, let's say, someone were to hack into the way the citizen was actually hacked into, and we did not have the citizen running for a number of hours, I think, yeah. What was the financial loss that we actually gained through that denial of service attack? So that becomes the risk, yeah. Then an attack is basically the propagation of the threat to the exploit, yeah. Then we have mitigation and compensation controls, which look at the risks that we have in organization, the possible dangers of the threats. Then we put measures in place to ensure that this does not happen again, yeah, in one way or the other. So that becomes a mitigation control. A compensation control actually comes in the aspect of something has already occurred. Let's say information was leaked, yeah, that is confidential information. What are some of the controls that we will put in place to actually ensure that we actually compensate on the error that we have? Yeah, so that becomes what we call compensation control in the cybersecurity space. Yeah, so I think we've talked all about this. So vulnerabilities include incorrect configurations, weak passwords, open ports, yeah, in the network for those of us who work in the network department or something. An exploit is basically a tool or a software that intentionally takes advantage of a vulnerability, we said, risk the probability, yeah, an attack. Yeah. So the next aspect or what we want to look at next is what is the importance of cybersecurity? Yeah. So what are we looking, or why do we need cybersecurity in our different organizations? And one aspect that is very important whenever we talk about cybersecurity is basically threat detection. Yeah. So in security, we actually say offense is the best defense. Yeah. And it is way better for us as an organization, yeah, to simulate threats, yeah, before they actually happen, yeah, and we know what can affect us as an organization before someone who's malicious or outside the organization ideally gets wind of that. So that becomes offense as the best defense in cybersecurity. So cybersecurity basically provides threat detection. So if, let's say, we were to do a penetration testing on a citizen, for instance, yeah, we will get to know most of the threats and the vulnerabilities that can be used to exploit a citizen, yeah, and ensure that we correct it before it actually happens, yeah. And we can also put in place measures to actually inform us of any threat that might be occur because we ideally get to know what we're looking at. Yeah. So it's easier for us to actually defend something that we know, other than defending something that we basically do not know even occurred. And that in cybersecurity can be done through what we call a honeypot. Yeah. So basically a honeypot is a low-hanging fruit. Yeah. that will prompt attackers to attack the low-hanging fruit and not the ideal system that you're trying to prevent. Yeah, and in this case, you actually get to detect the threats before they actually occur. Then we have vulnerability management. So basically, through, for instance, penetration testing and all, you get to understand what are the vulnerabilities. Another way of managing it will be through whatever we are doing today, which is capacity building in terms of cybersecurity. So from here, you get to sit down and understand, in my organization, what are the possible vulnerabilities or the possible weaknesses in any system that we are using. And we have procedures in place to actually ensure that we train people on them. Very good example of vulnerability management is training of phishing attacks. Yeah. Basically, if someone in your organization gets to understand what phishing is and how does it occur, and what can I do to ideally avoid being phished. Yeah. A very good example for that will be something like we have a policy in place where if you click an unknown link, yeah, you do not keep quiet on it. Yeah, you have a mechanism of reporting it. Yeah, so that the relevant authorities in your organization can actually look it up and mitigate an issue before it actually occurs. That becomes a vulnerability management. Yeah, in terms of people. Then another aspect that cybersecurity brings is protecting of sensitive personal information. So if you go through the CIA triad in totality, then that means you have protected any information that is being passed from point A to, yeah, which is something that cybersecurity brings. Then we have protecting private and business data. IPs are something that are coming up each and every other day. That is intellectual property. Most of us ideally get to patent ideas that we have so that no one else can ideally steal it from us. But someone can get that information and just change a few things to look a bit different from what you have and still use it. Yeah. So cybersecurity comes into the organization to protect private and business information. And in this case, it also protects for us in the public sector, the public information that we have from different people in the public, yeah. It improves productivity, and this is through something like availability. So if you are to head to work today and you did not have the required information that you need to execute your job, then that means that day you'll not do anything. Yeah. So that reduces the productivity of what you'll be doing on that day. But if there is good cybersecurity posture and everything, then the productivity is actually improved because information is available, it's confidential, and it's accurate. Yeah, that is, it has integrity at each and every point. Then we have cybersecurity providing a business continuity plan. So ideally, when we are talking about risk or vulnerability management, it actually gives us the idea of proactivity. Yeah. So if we do a risk management today and we say, in our organization, there is a probability that 1 out of 100 employees will click on a phishing link at least once a week. Yeah. And that phishing link might cause disruption in the operations. Then we create a policy that says, if such a thing happens, this is how we go. Yeah. If, let's say, the link that they clicked on led to downtime in the servers, then that means the backup servers ideally will pick up by itself. Yeah. So because we know this might happen, yeah, it's just a matter of when and not if. Yeah. Then we have a backup to it that will actually give us better views on if it happens, the business can still continue while we remediate whatever is going on. And that is one thing that cybersecurity brings on board. Then we also have overall improvement on the security posture of the organization. So despite the fact that you're saying cybersecurity deals with digital systems, we have digital systems that enforce physical security in organizations. For instance, we have cameras, yeah? And these cameras ideally enhance the physical security of things, because once someone ideally sees a camera placed somewhere, then they'll know we might be watched from this camera. So the first thing we need to do is pull down the camera and do whatever we want. Or we are taking up biometric systems. So most of the organization you go, you either have a key card or you place a finger. I don't know if we've gotten to a place where we use the retinal scans, but cybersecurity will improve the overall security, that is the physical security of the organization, through safeguarding of these digital systems that kind of relate to the physical security of the organization. Yeah, I'm hoping that makes sense. Yep. Aha. And that is a bit of introduction to what cybersecurity ideally is. Yeah. The next thing we want to talk about is cybersecurity fundamentals. Yeah. So we're going to talk a bit about the common threats, a deep dive into security principles, what we are saying that CIA tried, then introduction of the different technologies that are used, and an introduction of the security controls that have been ideally put in place, yeah, to boost our cybersecurity. And maybe you can also use that to your advantage. So cybersecurity fundamentals, this basically offer hybrid knowledge and try to gain insight into the principles of data and technology that frame and define cybersecurity. Cybersecurity is huge, yeah. So if you were to look at cybersecurity as a whole, you actually get to see the aspect of cybersecurity that will deal with information. That is what we call information security. When we come to the tools or the technologies that ideally help us with communication of information from one point to the other, we have issues or things to do with applications. Yeah. And basically these are what we see on any device that we're using, be it a computer, be it a tab, be it a phone. Yeah. So you click on an application, and that also has its security features that are put in place to ideally ensure that you have good security posture on applications. That information moves from point A to point B, yeah, via systems. Yeah. If you're using a phone, you might be using an API. Yeah. So we have what we call API security, that is part of cybersecurity. Yeah. And we also have information that is stored in servers. Yeah. That is the back end security of things for those of us who are into networking and stuff in our organizations. So cybersecurity can be done in different levels. Yeah, you can do cybersecurity on applications. You can do it on servers. You can do it on APIs. You can do it on the network, which ideally most of us use in our organizations. You can do security on the physical devices that we have. Yeah, what we call endpoint security. Yeah. And you can also do security on people, what we call cybersecurity policies and procedures that are actually placed for people to ideally to govern people on what they do. And all these tend to work in relation to protecting the enterprise data and infrastructure. And the fundamentals, as we have already alluded to them, are CIA, confidentiality, integrity, and availability. We call it a CIA triad because it ideally is a triangle in the cybersecurity space. Yeah. So there is strength in having all the three. Yeah. So confidentiality, integrity, and availability all at the same time. If you do not make to actually have all of them at the same time, then we actually say that there is a break in the cybersecurity posture of the organization. So I don't know if at this point you guys are actually thinking, do we have anything to do with confidentiality, integrity, and availability in organization? So if you're working or wherever you're working, what aspects of confidentiality actually put in place, yeah, for your organization as you're thinking about it right now? Integrity, if you're to send information from point A to point B, will it reach point B as and how it was actually, or you actually sent it? Yeah. And is it that you have breakage in terms of availability, or in your organization, whenever you request something and you have authorization, that ideally you get that information. Now, there is a caveat to this. Yeah. At some point, people or organization might look to actually put a lot of security features in their policies, their processes, their systems, in such a way that it actually affects this triad here. Yeah. So in a case where, let's say, you need 3, 4, 5 different persons from 5 different people for you to ideally gain access to something. That means if one person is not there and there is no backup, then availability becomes a problem. Yeah. If, let's say, you were to access the network and yes, we know the systems admin is the only one who has the network password, for instance, for them to change your password locally. And maybe they lose their master password, or they are not available in the office to actually do 1, 2, 3 things. It actually breaks the cybersecurity CIA triad. So even as we are ideally learning to bulk up the CIA triad in terms of maybe policies and procedures that govern people, we actually need to understand that we should not place a lot of security features, cybersecurity features, in any one organization that will actually hinder the CIA triad of whatever information we are trying to safeguard. Yeah. So confidentiality, just as we said, is preventing disclosure of information from being accessed by unauthorized personnel. So only the people who need to see that information are actually seeing that information. That is what confidentiality brings. The purpose of confidentiality is to keep personal information private and ensure it is visible and accessible only to those individuals who own it or need it to perform organizational functions. Yeah. So if, for instance, in your chain, I am not supposed to be viewing that information, even though I am in the organization, then I should not be able to see it. So that is what confidentiality tries to bring. Especially for us in the public sector, we tend to acquire a lot of personal data from people. Yeah. How is it that we try to safeguard this information in such a way that if the information that we collect, for instance, at the gate, because I think that is something that is still being done, yeah, is not given to someone else, yeah, outside there. So this is a case where you've actually seen, or once in a while, you might have gotten a call from someone, yeah, trying to dupe you out of maybe money or information or something, yeah, and you tend to ask yourself, where did they get your number? And that is because most probably there was a break in the confidentiality aspect, yeah, especially for government organizations where you pick people's data at the door before they enter. How do you ensure that the gatekeeper, yeah, will not sell the book where people write at 10,000 shillings and say it actually got lost, yeah? So that is where confidentiality in terms of security comes in. Then we have integrity. And this is preventing any addition, subtraction, or truncation of confidential information while in transit or in storage. So for integrity, we have already gotten the confidentiality aspect. Yeah. Or we're trying to look at the confidentiality aspect. And this means if I am sending information from point A to point B, yeah, this information needs to go the way it was without being altered in any way. Yeah. If someone gets access to it while on transit and they alter, then it breaks the confidentiality of things because it did not get to the intended person, yeah, as it was. Then it now brings the aspect of integrity because the information will not be accurate, which is one thing that we needed. So the principle of integrity ensures that data is accurate and reliable and is not modified incorrectly, whether accidentally or malicious. Yeah. And the last aspect to it is availability, as we have been talking about it. And this is just protecting of systems' ability to ensure it's fully available when needed by an authorized personnel. So whenever you need it, however you need it, you actually get it. Yeah. The purpose is to make the technology infrastructure, the applications and the data available when they are needed for the organizational process and for the organization's customers. Yeah. So whenever you need it, you actually get it. And in this case, you get it in an accurate format and in a confidential format. Yeah. That is what we call the CIA triad. I am hoping till there we are good. Yep. So Sawa. The next aspect to it is common threats in cyber. So these are really what malicious attackers will ideally use to try and compromise your systems. Yeah. So there are different forms of threats, and these threats will look to exploit a vulnerability or a weakness in your organization. So most of the malicious attackers that you will get, there are different types of attackers again, such as we call them, there are script kiddies, there are APTs, they are intermediate. So depending on the threat level of the attacker, yeah, script kiddies will just try to look for anything. Yeah. So most of them don't ideally get anything in your systems. Yeah. But it gets to a problem where you get to an APT or an APT is trying to access information from you. Yeah. So they will use advanced techniques, yeah, to try and exploit your systems. So first and foremost is they want to understand your environment. Yeah. So if you as an employee do not understand your environment, then that means you cannot preempt the security issue that will come. Yeah. And if you have maybe gone through a training like what we're doing for your organizations and your systems exclusively, then you get to learn some of the vulnerabilities, yeah, that are in your systems. And these vulnerabilities can actually be exploited using different threats. So an example is a Trojan horse. So a Trojan horse is just a computer program that masquerades as a useful program that a user would wish to execute but conceals harmful code. Yeah, especially for those of us who ideally download things from unknown sites. Those of us who go to Pirate Bay to try and pirate movies, maybe, or you need an application and you do not, maybe you do not want to pay for it, or it is not in App Store and you can find it online and you do not look at it. You might download it thinking it's a computer program that is useful to you, but in the background, it's actually doing something harmful. So that becomes what we call a Trojan horse. The name comes from the Trojan War. For those of us who are into Greek mythology, we get to understand how the Greek conquered Troy, yeah, using a horse that concealed people inside. So ideally, the horse was meant to be like a token of defeat. So back in the day when you were defeated, you would give a token to the person who defeated you. So after like 20 years of war between Troy and the Greek, and they could not penetrate their walls, they actually created a horse as a token of defeat. But inside that horse, they had concealed soldiers. So once the Trojans basically pushed the horse into their camp, that's how they were ideally defeated. And that is the same concept that Trojan horses come to, that was used to actually come with what we call a Trojan horse cyber attack. Then we have viruses. So a virus is a program that infects computer files, usually executable, by inserting a copy of itself on the file. These files are always executed when the infected file is loaded into memory, allowing the virus to affect other files. So basically, this happens for those of us who, let's say you wanted a file from your colleague's machine and you gave them a flash disk, yeah? And the file that they have is basically infected with a virus or a malicious program that will need to be clicked for it to move. So once they copy, that is, they have activated that malware and they place it to you. If you go and you copy it and run that file that you're given that has a virus, it tends to jump from one person to the other, just like a flu. Yeah, if someone had flu in your organization, after a while, it spreads. Yeah. Then another version of a virus is actually called a worm. And a worm is a program that infects a computer. And in this case, a worm does not basically require someone to click on it. Yeah, it lives off the land. Yeah, so as long as you have a worm in your computer, it tends to jump to other different files. So easiest way to know whether you have a worm is, I don't know if anyone here has ever gone to their computer and you find on your desktop, a file actually has a shortcut, but the shortcut cannot open the same way the file ideally opens. Yeah, so you try to click on the file and it cannot open. So you tend to find there are shortcuts of the file that you have. So if you had 5 documents, then you have 5 shortcuts of those documents. Then that is a red flag. That actually means you have a worm in your system. Yeah, and you need to look at it. So there are different types of worms, but now that will be getting a bit deeper into it. Then we have phishing. So phishing is one of the biggest issues that we have in the cybersecurity space or in the digital system space right now. Studies ideally say that around 60%, yes, 60% of all attacks ideally come from two things, either insider threats, yeah, or phishing threats, yeah. And in this case, phishing is where you actually, a malicious attacker uses emails or websites designed to look like a legitimate business or governmental agency to deceive internet users into disclosing personal data. So let's say you're seated at your workplace and you get, for ladies, we love flowers. So maybe I'm thinking of floral dresses that really look cute. For gentlemen, maybe we're into cars or motorcycles, and you actually get a promo, yeah, on your email that shows a very nice collection of dresses or very nice motorcycles at cheap prices, and there is a link there that ideally needs to be that they want you to click into. And without you asking yourself twice, is it really a legitimate link? I will show you guys most probably tomorrow. I don't know if it's now or tomorrow, how to identify a phishing link. Yeah. So does it have the S or is it just HTTPS? Is the URL well designed? How does it look? And someone ideally clicks into it. Yeah. And once they click into it, the information is gone. And this is an example of what phishing is. So we have the attacker. Yeah. We have the attacker, and the attacker sends a phishing email to the target. So in this case, I'm thinking they send maybe that email with a very nice floral dress, or a very nice motorcycle that is a bit cheaper than what you're used to. And you click on it and you want to see. So the target here, or the victim, clicks on the phishing link and visits the fake website. While they're actually thinking they're looking at something legit, the attacker collects important credentials, yeah, of what they are doing. And then the attacker now uses the victim's credentials to access their private information on the original website. And that is how people get their money stolen. Information is ideally shared to different people. Maybe you had a very good product that was supposed to be launched. Sorry. And just before you launch, you actually see a rival organization ideally launch it. Yeah. Then we have another attack called denial of service attack. And denial of service attack is an attack from a single source that denies system access to legitimate users by overwhelming the target. So a very good example of this is what we were talking about, the attack that was propagated against eCitizen, yeah, whereby a lot of traffic was ideally sent to the eCitizen servers to a point where us as the legitimate users of the eCitizen, we could not get government services for a number of hours before that was ideally solved. So this ideally does not introduce the volumetric aspect of the attack. So let's say your organization has systems that are servers that are powerful, they're actually bigger. Yeah. So if someone sends request to the server that will not fill the whole server, you might still get access to it. Most of the time you'll get what I was telling you, script kiddies will want to run denial of service. Yeah. So if someone does that to you, they can actually get hit or miss. Yeah. But now for the advanced persistent threats, yeah, they actually do what we call a distributed denial of service. So this is just a variant of denial of service that uses a coordinated attack from a distributed system of computers rather than from a single source. So remember, in denial of service, it was one person or a single source trying to attack a target. Yeah. In this case, different sources ideally are used to attack the different sources are used to attack the target. Yeah. So if, let's say, in our case, the server was actually 5 gigabytes, yeah, and zombie bot 1 would only, in distributed, in denial of service, it only can send requests of up to 2 gigabytes. That means the central server here has 3 gigabytes that it can accept legitimate users. But in this case, a distributed denial of service means zombie bot 1 over here can actually send 2 gigabytes. Zombie bot 2 can send another 2 gigabytes. And zombie bot 3 can send another 2 gigabytes. In total, the server is actually getting 6 gigabytes and it can only hold up to 5 gigabytes. So it makes the attack more powerful, through what we call a volumetric attack. Then from there, we have how to detect a virus attack. Yeah. So you wake up in the morning and you go to your system and it's slowing down. Yeah. This is because you have finite resources. So let's say your system is 16 GB. Yeah. And of the 16 GB, you had 8 GB of files. Yeah. But the virus has replicated itself. Yeah. Or added aspects of itself to the different files, and they tend to increase the file size of the files that you have. So it ends up making the system slow. So that's one way you can detect a virus attack. Unexpected activity on your machine or pop-up messages. Yeah. So a very good example for this is at some point you can actually see, I don't know if we know what a CMD is. So basically, if you type CMD on your laptop on the search, it actually brings a black screen, yeah, where you can type something. So sometimes you'll actually see your machine opening it and closing it by itself without you clicking on it. Then that ideally shows you there is something. Or you're actually browsing and different other pop-up messages come in. Yeah. Maybe you need to click on this link, and you end up, you close it and 2 more pop up. You close those 2 and 2 more pop up. Yeah. So that is how to detect that your system has a virus. Yeah. Then email server becoming overloaded or intermittent. For those of us who know what an email server is, you tend to find that the messages that are coming on your email server become replicated. So a message can be like 3 or 4 same messages, same message, same everything, but they have been replicated like 4 times. So they end up taking a lot of space. Then we have data files becoming corrupt or going missing. So you had saved information yesterday, then you come today and you know no one has gotten to your machine, but you do not have 2, 3, 4 of your files. And that means there might be a virus attack on your system that's deleted information. Yeah, because it gives access to an external user in your machine. Then unexpected changes in content of your file. So ideally, you might find that content in your file is altered. Yeah, maybe something is deleted or something is added to your file. Then that becomes a red flag that you need to investigate as soon as possible. Make sense? Yeah. Then we have the next aspect that we want to talk about is introduction of security controls. So we have looked at what ICT is. We have looked at what cybersecurity is. we have looked at how cybersecurity basically affects ICT and how they merge together in terms of the information and the communication that we ideally share. Now, in this case, we want to look at what are some of the measures or the countermeasures that we can put to ICT systems or in cybersecurity to help us ideally avoid, detect, maybe counteract or minimize security risks to the physical property that we have, maybe the information, the computer systems, or any other assets that are considered to be critical to our organization. Yeah. So when it comes to security controls, we have different types of security controls. Yeah. So we have physical controls, technical controls, and administrative controls. But these controls actually have what we call control functions or control measures. Yeah. So the control measures include the detective measures. So these are any measures that are put in place to detect an incident before it affects the system. A very good example that we can look at that I think most of us know is we've heard of firewalls. Yeah. So this system is actually running firewall and everything, and that becomes a detective system. Yeah. And in this case, we are saying it actually helps us. It actually helps us detect or alert us before even the attack basically affects our system. Yeah. Then we have the preventive measures, and these are measures put in place to ideally deter an attack from gaining access to our system. I just talked about something we call a honeypot, which is a low-hanging fruit. So that, for instance, becomes a security control that can be put in place. Then we have the corrective controls, and these are any measures that are taken to return the system back to its secure state after an attack. So ideally, you have already been attacked, but we need the business to continue. So we need to actually have corrective measures that will ensure this information is ideally, or our business is ideally put back into a running state while we try to correct any issues that we have. Now, these functions that we are talking about, the detective measures, preventive measures, and corrective measures, are actually in different aspects on the different controls that we have. So we have physical controls, technical controls, and administration controls. What am I saying? This is what I'm saying. We have types of security controls which are physical, technological, technical, and administrative. And we have control functions. Yeah. So basically, physical controls that are preventive, yeah, in organizations include things like fences, maybe gates, locks. So they actually prevent someone from coming in. Yeah. So even before someone gets to try and do something into our system, then or into organization, then we have preventive controls. Yeah, I think that's where we can put security gates. Can also be a physical preventive control. Yeah, then we have physical detective controls. So these are controls that are physical, but they actually help us detect issues. For instance, CCTVs, surveillance cameras. So we have someone in the security office just manning the CCTVs. So from there, they can actually see what is happening all over the grounds that we have. Then we have the physical corrective measures. Yeah. In this case, we're looking at repairing physical damage, reissuing access cards, for instance. We notice a breach, yeah, in our system. Yeah, so we ask everyone to bring back their security cards, then we give them new security cards. So anyone who might have an old security card will not be able to gain access. So it becomes a corrective measure after something happened. Then we have technical preventive controls. And these are just technical aspects. Yeah. So this is where we now get into the systems that we have. Firewalls, intrusion prevention systems, multi-factor authentication, which most of us are ideally using at the moment, antiviruses in our machines, actually preventive. Then we have the technical detective controls, things to do like intrusion detection systems, honeypots, as I was talking about. Then the technical corrective controls will include things like vulnerability patching, rebooting a system, quarantine a virus, for instance, if you get something like that. So rebooting a system means, let's say you have a denial of service attack that we've just talked about, yeah, and people cannot gain access to it. So you just reboot the system so that it kicks everyone out, and hopefully it's not a persistent type of threat. Yeah. So once it kicks everyone out, then you tend to get access to, or people tend to get access to the information that they need to get access to. Then you have administrative preventive controls, and these are things to do with hiring and termination policies. So do we do background checks to anyone whom we are about to hire? Basically, where are they coming from? What was their relationship between, what was the relationship between them and the previous, maybe let's say, place they actually worked with? Separation of duties, yeah. So how do we, what are some of the policies that we have in place to ensure that I cannot requisition for something and also authorize it? Yeah. So if I'm requisitioning for it, then I need to have an oversight, yeah, of someone else ideally reviewing it, and maybe someone else authorizing the payment, for instance. Then data classification. So in this case, we actually putting our information in different aspects. So there is information that only managers need to see, yeah, and there is information that only maybe clients need to see, and there is information that is everyone can ideally see it. It's of benefit to everyone in the organization. So that is how you actually prevent information. So if this information is for managers' eyes only, it's only classified as managers' eyes only, and they are the only ones who can ideally see it. Then review of assets. The administrative detective controls include review access rights. Yeah. So after every maybe 1 month or 1 week or 3 months, yeah, you actually review the access rights. So in this, you're actually looking at maybe someone left the organization. How do they still have access to the information that you guys are having, or was everything revoked? Yeah. Then doing audit logs and unauthorized changes actually help you detect different other aspects. Then administrative corrective controls include implementing a business continuity plan, yeah, which we actually talked about, having an incident response plan for those of us who will want to do an IRP. And there are even many more that I think you can think of in relation to whatever you are doing as an organization. The next thing we want to talk about is a bit of the difference between cybersecurity and information security. So information security, sometimes referred to as InfoSec, covers tools and processes that organizations use to protect information. The information is basically on the information aspect of things, yeah? So you'll tend to find most of the aspects that you deal with will actually deal with information. So here is where you put on policies and procedures that you can use to basically safeguard any information. So it's a wider term for safeguarding of information assets in an organization. And information security is a broad field that covers many areas, yeah, such as physical security, endpoint security, data encryption, network security. So in this case, you tend to find cybersecurity basically covers digital systems. Yeah. And most of these digital systems and assets actually run information. Yeah. So we have an organization called ISO that has created ISO 27001 and 27002. Yeah. To basically put controls to systems and to information. Yeah. So information security basically deals with specifically the information that is being passed on the devices that you want. So in this case, you need to look at is the information confidential? Is it does it have integrity? How is it being transmitted from point A to point B? Now that's information security. Cybersecurity now covers the digital systems, yeah, that actually run this information, yeah. So the systems might include maybe the devices, the applications, the APIs, as we're talking about, and everything. And cybersecurity tends to provide defense mechanisms for them. Yeah. And information security, just as I've said, protecting of forms of digital or non-digital forms of data storage. So from there, we talk a bit about integration of technologies and their impact. So application basically don't tend to work in isolation. I think that's something that we might have already gotten to learn from using different technologies. Yeah. So for instance, networking is a technology on its own. Yeah. You'll need to understand how networking works for you to actually improve or maybe hack into a network or something. And then you'll also need to understand how a phone works. Yeah. And you'll need to understand how an application works. So this application relies on the physical phone, and the physical phone basically relies on the network aspect for it to transmit your call from yourself to the person you're calling. So you can see we have different technologies that are being integrated into one, and all of them have their issues, yeah, that need to be looked into. So integration enables applications and systems to be built separately to work together ideally. So an application is built separately. The physical phone is built separately. The network technology is built separately, but we integrate all of them in communication, yeah, basically for us to pass information from point A to point B. And this tends to reduce the cost of acquiring individual tools, increases efficiency and effectiveness. When we look at the cybersecurity aspect, so we have something called a security operations center. Yeah, so this is just a place where people sit and they monitor the different devices or the different technologies that an organization ideally is running. So in this case, you find for you to run a security operations center, you have different technologies and different tools that you will need. But through integration, you tend to find maybe you only need to acquire one tool that can do different aspects, having been integrated to it. Some of the communication technologies that we have include firewalls. So a firewall is a network security device that monitors and filters incoming and outgoing traffic based on the organization's previously established security. So ideally, your system admins have policies on what information can be passed and what information cannot be passed. Very good example I can give for this is I know of organization where you cannot access social sites. Yeah, something like Facebook, maybe YouTube, while you're at work. Yeah, so this is always because of a security policy that has been placed on the firewall. So if it gets a request being passed for YouTube, it actually drops it or something. So that is a communication technology. We have routers, and routers are basically network devices used to establish a connection between various networks in a simultaneous manner. So you, in your organization, you have your own Wi-Fi, but you need to access information from an organization in the US, maybe, or in Kisumu. And Kisumu have their own Wi-Fi. Yeah. So routers tend to connect your internal Wi-Fi to the World Wide Web, www, so that information can be transmitted from one point to another. Then we have switches, which is basically a network device to establish simultaneous connection among various devices. Make sense? From there, let's talk a bit about emerging technologies and their impact. And here we are just gonna do an intro to it. Yeah. I think we're about to finish, then I can get your questions. So maybe in the next 10 minutes, then we get any questions that you might be having. So when it comes to emerging technologies and their impacts, we have different emerging technologies that we shall be looking, especially on the third day of our training. So we have artificial intelligence and machine learning. So this is something that has taken the world by storm. Right now, everyone is talking about AI. Yeah. In terms of maybe ChatGPT, I think that's what everyone ideally knows. But there are different aspects. So artificial intelligence did not start yesterday. It ideally started a while back. Yeah. The only thing that ChatGPT came to do is that it exploded and it gave visual aid to artificial intelligence. So there are many others that you can use. For instance, if you want to paraphrase someone's work, yeah, you have keeper.ai. Whatever I have written there helps you paraphrase it. If you want to write something very fast without you ideally thinking about it, you only need to give a topic and maybe give URLs to write a sonic. Then it goes there, picks bits of information and summarizes it for you and gives you a summary of things. So there are different types of machine learning that are technologies that are coming up. We have blockchain and Web3, which is another technology that is coming up. Ideally, we've had people talking of cryptocurrency and the rest, which is very important. Then intelligent automation and robotics. We have robots that ideally are doing jobs, yeah, for us. That is what we call intelligent automation. Internet of Things. Right now, we are in an era where you might ideally want, when it's time to wake up, maybe at 6 a.m., the drawers or the curtains ideally draw themselves. Yeah. And once your alarm rings, it's 6, your alarm rings, it triggers the curtains to draw by themselves. The same triggers the showers to ideally preheat your water, and the coffee maker to start making coffee in and by its own. So all that is done through Internet of Things. Or for instance, you're at work and you're running late and you need to close your curtains back at home. The only thing you need to do is click on a button on your phone and all that happens. Or let's say you set your fridge to actually remind you when milk is depleted or food is depleted. So you actually get a list of everything that is depleted after every 1 week, for instance. So all that is Internet of Things, and that's something that's coming up. Quantum computing is another one. So basically, how fast can we basically do things in terms of computing? Yeah, so that is what quantum computing tries to help. Over there, I just have a little bit of something to jog our memories in what we have ideally been talking about. Yeah. So in that slide, you're actually seeing Tom and Jerry, and Tom is there really holding the door. And that's ideally how security works in organization. So a company has a firewall, it has an antivirus, it has an intrusion detection system. They have educated people, they have very good policies. And on top of that, they have a very good IT and security staff that actually do their job. But just because the humans are the weakest link in any organization, yeah, you actually find Dave, yeah, maybe from finance, yeah, decided to click on a downloadable Costco card that he saw is $1,000 and it's ideally cheap. I can look at it, and through that he invites ransomware into the organization, and it ends up being a whole other different case in totality. So the organization has the best of everything, but just because of someone's ignorance, they tend to actually lose anything and everything they had. So with that, I think we have created a very good basis for what we want to talk about. That is tomorrow. So we shall, from tomorrow, I think we shall dive a bit into what cybersecurity is. So that is where we shall talk about what are your password policies, why do you need maybe software and system updates. I'm thinking of issues to do with antivirus and malwares. What are they? How do you detect them in your systems, and how do you prevent yourself from them? How do you view your network security, physical security? We shall talk also, we shall review access controls and all. I think with that, I can pick any questions that we shall be having for the next like 15 or 20 minutes, if that's fine, Alex. Sorry, Simon?
Hi, David.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we have finished our first session on time. I don't think there's anyone with a question to our expert. Most have been requesting for the notes. I believe we will organize and have the notes shared. Someone is asking, attackers are people. Let me check again. Someone just sent it. Attackers are people trained in it. And how safe are we? I don't know if David, you have seen that question.
Oh, yes, yes, I have seen. So, so for attackers, let me just try see who was that. That's Edward Temu. Edward. So ideally, attackers, for attackers, I always tend to believe that they also work on a model or on a business model. Yeah. So ideally, the same way for us on the good side, we tend to train our people on different aspects. Same as you say, attackers also train their people. But the easiest way for us to counter these attackers is ideally by being trained. For instance, on the last slide that is still on your screen, if only David would basically use the training, because you can see there is education up there. If only Dave from finance would ideally use the training that he had and ensure that he does not click on any phishing links, yeah, then that would ideally make them safe, yeah. So basically the same way we're looking at attackers being trained, same things are what we do to our people in different organizations. So continuous training to basically improve simulations, yeah, is something else that you can ideally use to ideally tell people how to make yourselves safe. Another thing that we can do to ideally safeguard ourselves is ideally telling people in different organizations that when we're talking about cybersecurity, then that means it's not a matter of if we will be hacked. It's just a matter of when we will be hacked. So anyone can be hacked, even if you're a noob or you're a professional in security. At one point, you might do something, and it's not bad. Yeah. So if, let's say, Dave in this case clicked on it, and the first thing he does after clicking on it is going to the IT staff and telling them, I clicked on this link and I think it might be malicious, then that gives the IT staff time to actually look into it and most probably safeguard the organization from any information that we have in that. I hope that makes sense, Edward. We have Kipiegon and Akwalu actually asking something about cloud and how safe the data is. So, so cloud is also another emerging technology, ideally, that is coming up and people are picking it. Each and everything, one thing I'd say is that each and everything in security is basically hackable, yeah? And the information can be stolen. But how you actually secure or how you basically put your security posture gives the difference. So when it comes to cloud, you tend to find cloud service providers, like we shall be talking about them, I think, the last class. Cloud service providers tend to constantly improve on the security posture of the cloud services. Yeah. So that means your data is safer, but there is nothing that is 100% foolproof. Yeah. So at some point, yeah, your data might be basically hacked into or stolen. Most probably might not be an issue from the cloud side, but maybe something from your side. Because for you to access your cloud data, for instance, you're going to be using a password. Yeah. And for the password, if you do not have good password policies, your data might be stolen. So when we look at cloud as an infrastructure, yes, it is safe. But our interaction with the cloud is something that we need to improve each and every other day so that we ensure that we have aspects to do with checking whatever we are uploading. Is it basically safe? How are our passwords and how are we storing our passwords and everything in between? I'm hoping that makes sense for those of us who are looking at safety in cloud services. So yeah, pick cloud technology. It's ideally safe. Yeah. The only thing you need to look into is how do you interact with it? Because that is the critical aspect of things. So Jacob asks, have I lost it? Is there software that can give ICT officers monitor what the staff are accessing? Yes. There are different softwares that one can use to ideally monitor. But the best way I'd advise you, Jacob, is instead of actually trying to monitor what they are accessing, easiest way would be to put policies on your firewall to ensure whatever you guys, we have what we call blacklisting. Yeah. So for instance, you do not want people in the organization to actually go to social sites or movie sites, for instance, yeah, while on the network. So what you do is you just create a policy on the firewall that restricts any traffic that requests maybe movie sites or something. That will be way easier for you than actually getting a software, because softwares can be cracked. Yeah, we will get a vulnerability one way or the other, and especially if someone in the organization really wants to use whatever they want to do, then a software can be hacked. I hope that is helpful. Yes, do I have any other? What is the way forward when a particular government website is not safe perpetually? That is Dennis. One thing we are trying to sensitize more people in the industry is more of security audits. And security audits in terms of maybe, let's say, the government website is doing penetration testing on it. So getting people whom you feel like are safe, that's what we call penetration testers, to actually come in and do penetration tests for your website and something, Dennis. Then they will give you a report of what they have seen. So in your organization, your network is a problem, or your website has this and this and this that you need to change. And they give you recommendations, or they give recommendations to your IT team for them to correct these issues and make the government website foolproof. I think that is helpful. Lewis asks, in penetration testing, are there legal sites or networks that can be used for ethical hacking? Yes, there are. Lewis. One such site you can go and learn more about it is it's actually called Dam Vulnerability Website, DAMN Vulnerability Website. So that is one where you can play around with it. It's actually free for anyone and everyone. You can play around with it. It gives you ways on hacking websites, hacking maybe mobiles and everything. Certified EC Council also has its own website. I think it's called EC Council something, hackers.ecouncil or something. I can get that for you and share it with you guys. Those are some of the things that you can use for training purposes. Another very good site that you can go to is called CTF Room. Yeah, so CTF Room is an organization where it has different aspects that you can ideally learn on ethical hacking for training purposes. Lewis, I hope that's fine. Is there anyone that I have missed? Or Samson Jiri, you're saying, please elaborate more on what is Internet of Things. I think we can shelve that for now. Kindly just shelve it. Then when we're talking about emerging technologies on Wednesday, kindly bring it up, because that's where we're going to talk a bit more what Internet of Things is. Then James says,
Hello.
Olga.
Hello, kindly, I was requesting that you answer these questions tomorrow so that we can, if we can plan to begin more earlier, like 17:15, so that you take the 15 minutes to answer these questions will be fine, sir. Please.
Sawa, because I thought Gwen had said we are going from 6 to 8. That's why I gave her 30 minutes, but I think that's fine. Gwen, we can just have these questions, maybe the ones that we haven't talked about, then have them tomorrow. Simon, back to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, David. I think the session has started off at a very high note. and the audience would really want to know more, as you can see from the questions and so many other things that they're interested to learn. So I bet these will help us fine tune how we proceed going forward. And tomorrow, I think one of our participants has suggested we start at 5:15. So you'll just use the same link. You will use the same Zoom link to join tomorrow. We can join as early as 5:15 so that we have at least enough time for the questions. Since it's almost 8 p.m., we do understand that all participants in this session are professionals who are busy and they have taken the time to sacrifice and learn this. And we would want to give them time to attend to their personal schedules for the evening. So we want to appreciate you, David. We hope that they'll join tomorrow and share the link to those who have not yet gotten it, those who are not aware of what is going on. We want to also appreciate ICT Authority because they are the ones who are in charge of this program. And we hope that this year, it's February, we are going to ensure that all professionals are aware of cybersecurity skills and knowledge, and that even as technology advances, we will be in a position to safeguard our devices and our personal privacy and also organizational privacy, and also be compliant. So thank you so much, everyone. Let us come tomorrow again, at least early, like 5:15, so that we can proceed with the second session. And I want to wish all of you a blessed evening and looking forward for similar session tomorrow and Thursday. For those requesting for the recordings, we will try find an easier way to share the notes. And if you have missed the session or if you have joined late, you can visit Capabill's YouTube. We will see how we can have it, the video on YouTube. We'll also try to discuss with the ICT Authority to see if you can always get the YouTube link so that you can watch it at your own free time, so that you can catch up in case you have joined late. So thank you so much, everyone, and let us enjoy our evening. Thank you so much, David, for your sacrifice, and I believe the audience has really learned a lot from you. So thank you.
Thank you, guys.